All right, guys. This is me, Robert, Waldo 2413, making a quick video. This video is for poor man screen printing. You're saying you're having issues with your how to set up the screens and all that on your pallets, and with the registration, trying to keep registration on your China press. Um, Here's a few things that might give you a hand. Always mark your thing using a uh, paper, like never usually mark straight on the pallet. Um, just mark onto the paper, or you can, if you did mark on the pallet, just use uh, some paper that on top of it, underneath it. Depends which kind of adhesive you use. If you use like the PMI tape, pallet tape, then you're fine because you can actually mark on the pallet underneath it. Get your center lines and points where you want your image, so you can line your image up and put your transfer on it to begin with. Then going over to your template, this is one Juan from Liberty Graphics printed out. He sells them also, I believe, on his Etsy store. But this is one that I helped him with the design. He put a few extra things in. What it is, if you look, it tells you like what size pallet you're using, what size frame you're using, and where to mark it. So like if you're using a 21 by 28 outer diameter auto frame, you're going to put your pallet right there. If you're using like a 16 by 24, and let me grab a frame really quick. Like I said, the 24 or 20 by 24 is your standard screen. So what you would do is you'd line it up with that, and of course, right now I got all this on, it's not sitting flat. But you're going to position your thing. So if you want it like 4-inch down, which that's the norm for your prints, you're going to have your image start right here. But you've got all these center points and all that. So what you would do is you put your registrations on these points, on the squares like you were doing, and line them up. Another thing like that Juan does in this kit, he gives you a piece of metal. So what you can do is you bolt the metal so that the frame will butt up right to the edge of it, and that gives you a stop point. That's what you're asking about, how to set it up. One of the things that we did in my shop way back in the day, and since you're doing it on the cheap and you want to save as much as you can, and this is something really simple. All I did was build a frame, and it's got a point. What I did with this one, this is actually my pallet, and that's my 4-inch line. So what I would do is actually even put my image underneath here, but you can put your stencil on top. And then what you do is once you position all your stencils on there with the center points and the edge, what you do is you bring your screen in, slide it down to the corner against the other edge, and that's going to register it every time that way. And what you're going to do, though, after you do that, is when you get on your press, you're still going to have to adjust your screens. And a little tip is when you're doing it, like where you're using the pylons, the issue that you can run into is when you flash them, they will shrink. So your registration is going to move some. So another thing is you need to put down tape, but the best thing is either if you're using a pylon or a shirt to test on, what you do is you run your white with your registration marks wherever you want them, and you're going to have it like set up. But what you do is once you do that first layer, you put tape over that area. And like on this thing, you can see, because I ran, I think 4 colors on this one, 4 or 5 colors. So like when I ran my white layer, I taped over the area where there was white ink at. And then what you do is you set your next screen, you bring it over here and set it on the registrations where it looks like it's going to be. So you're using the white registration points. When you're using that, or whatever color is your base. So on your point, you're using the white on that red, the red, white, and blueprint one. So what you would do is like you line your first one up, that you got your registrations, you're going to leave them on there. Then what you're going to do is once you do that first one, like when I first started, you could see that I was off on this lighter brown. But what you do is you run your white or your first layer, you put tape over the whole thing, and then you line your screen up on top of that on the registrations where it looks like it's right where it's going to be. And then what you do is you run your screen over the tape here that's all covered up, so you're not going to mess up and you don't have to flash it. So it's not going to shrink either. Even if you print on the Palon, it won't shrink. And then what you do is, if it's off, you take a rag, some screen cleaner, whatever, and wipe the image off and then readjust it so that you get it where it needs to be. Once you got that layer done, you can either wipe that ink off, or you can tape over it again if you want to see, like, kind of like how this one, where all the colors lined up, and then you put your next color on and you do the same thing. You got it taped over, so you line it up with your registration points wherever you're putting them. And when you get the registration points lined up and you run the test, once it's where you like it, you can tape over that, and then you just go to your next one, or you can wipe it off and then go to your next one. The other thing too, sometimes too, where I noticed you were doing the push and the pull, sometimes when you're running to an issue like that, you can do one way, one the other. Sometimes it tends to work better. Another thing I noticed too is how you had your choke. What I would probably do also is I would probably choke your underbase 1 or 2 pixels when you're starting out, maybe a little bit more, or expand the pixels on your top layer also, your top colors. Because on your print, I seen on that first letters, the outside ones, there's a small white gap. So that tells me that it looks like them ones were the ones that were choked, not the white. Because when you had it lined up, you just had that white edge in between the white and the blue, or the blue and the red. And there was a gap there. So that tells me your top layers were choked, not your bottom layer. So when you're starting out, another little tip is to choke that a little bit more, or choke it like, let's say, 1 or 2 pixels. Which it might be a lot later on, but just choke it to 1 or 2. And then if you're worried, expand the pixels on your top colors, 1 or 2, or just put 1 so that it bumps over a little bit, just so it fills in them areas. Hope that helps. Keep up the good work. If you have any other questions, let me know. And like I said, this is a simple thing you could also make too. It's very simple, cheap. You don't need the plastic. I had that on there. You can just use the lines underneath. Something I've had sitting here on the floor forever. And then, like I said, since you've got your one paper, just put some beams on like wood on this side and wood on this side all the way across, so you can pull it right up to that corner every time, and it's going to line up where you need it. Thanks again. Hope this helped. If anyone else has any questions or anything, let me know. Please like, subscribe, and follow. Peace out.